Erin, you have no idea how thrilled I am that we finally have gotten the chance to speak. For folks who are listening to this whole interview on Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, RudyBlairMedia.com, Erin and I have known each other, I don't want to say how long, well, just say for a very, very long time. We have worked together. We have partied together. We have broken bread together. We have cried together. We have laughed together. We have shared family together. We have done everything together. It is just so great to get a chance to talk to you because it's actually been a couple of years.
It has been. And yeah, we go way back. Like I remember you were at our wedding, Rob and I. In fact, you shared an office with my husband, Rob, and you knew him before I did, I think, Rudy. So how about that?
Yeah, no, that was, I love the wedding. I just got to let folks know about the wedding. They sang to each other. Rob played guitar, and then you sang as you walked down the aisle. It was just like, oh man, this is the best. I love it.
It was so cheesy, Rudy. Come on.
Nah, because that's the way it was back then. Back in the day, that's what you did. It wasn't so much about tradition. It was about love. And this is how you two showed each other love, not just for each other, but for family and everybody who was there. You shared it.
Yeah, and we laughed through our vows. And you know what? That was a harbinger of our whole marriage, which so far 32 years, touch wood, coming up on 33. And thank God for the laughter, or we would not have survived. We just wouldn't. And if you can find humor, even in the darkest moments, and I can give you an example of that a little bit later on, but if you can find that humor, I think that it's what helps us to survive, Rudy.
It absolutely does. But, again, I can remember when we first met, and, who would have thought that you would become the broadcast legend and role model that you have become? I mean, because when you came in, you were just, starry-eyed, and you were working with people like John Gilbert. These guys were old school, like the old school, and people don't even realize what these guys are like back then. The fact that you went one-on-one with these guys and became the broadcaster that you have become is absolutely amazing, and the people that you worked with over the years.
Oh, thank you, Rudy. I appreciate that. I always had big ambitions, and I don't think I was smart enough to know that I probably couldn't do what I was trying to do. But eventually my eyes were open to the old boys club and the fact that for many women in radio at that time, our job was to either be the tittering co-host or just to kind of sit and wait to be pointed at and spoken to. So I never really did know when to shut up. So this could be a very long interview.
No, you know what? It's funny. You say it could be a long interview, but for the amount of years that we've known each other, time just flew. Yeah. It's flown. And, when I think about the people that you worked with, two names, of course, Don Daynard, one, Mike Cooper, such chemistry, two different people that you worked with.
Completely.
But the chemistry was there. What do you think it was about the two of them that you were able to work so well with them?
Well, with Dawn, believe it or not, the demographic that we were always going for at CHFI and most every other station was 25 to 54. And when I started with Dawn in 1988, I was 25 and he was 54. And it wasn't, as somebody said, it wasn't a marriage, it was a family reunion. And so that whole demographic was covered by one or both of us at any given time. And I was a foil to him in so many ways because he was this macho John Wayne worshiping kind of a guy. And of course, John Wayne never had a sidekick, and he certainly didn't have a female partner. And, he had all of this history. He was 1 year younger than my dad, still is. They are both still living, Don Daynard and Don Davis. And I was, young and just newly married, and I would go through having a baby and having her at home for 3 months doing the show, and then 11 years in all with Dawn and all of the changing and maturity. So there were sparks. We genuinely laughed together, and I kind of wanted his approval and affection in a father kind of role. And so there was all of that going on behind the scenes. So it made for a lot of fun, and a lot of people knew that my job was to just keep him from getting overly cranky. And sometimes I succeeded and sometimes I didn't, but that's what they loved about Don. What you heard was pretty much what you got. He was real. And that's the thing about Cooper too. Cooper is real. And we became really good friends. He and his late wife, Debbie, and me and Rob, we became very, very good friends. And we were able to build on that. Now, we were vastly different, too. Mike was Hamilton through and through. I call him a blue-collar guy with a blue ribbon heart. And he was real and dirty and funny, and he didn't care what anybody thought at any given time. And I'm super careful. What will people think? Don't say that. We're going to have to apologize. Half the time I was biting my tongue or thinking, oh my God, we're going to be in so much trouble. But that was the fun of it too, was he would take it to the edge and hopefully I would bring it back. But he also loosened me up a lot too. And I needed that because I was so afraid of offending. And I still am. I never want to offend anybody. So afraid of having an opinion, so afraid of standing up to people, which I never really did to Dawn. But with that friendship, that safety net, it just felt like there wasn't anything that we couldn't do. And for the most part, we did it. And it was just, it was so much fun. It was joyful.
Absolutely. The awards that you received, the accolades, being on a radio station that wasn't just number one in Toronto, number one in Canada, one of the biggest stations in North America. So many successes. I mean, recently I posted a picture where you and myself were hosting an event, and it was with his name just popped out of my head, who just recently passed away. I can't think of his name right now, and I'm kicking myself.
It'll come.
But it'll come. But folks, just look back over on my Facebook. You're going to see the picture of the artist who I'm talking about. That I've had a chance to host with you. There's so many great things that we've all been able to do. But what happens is people see all the great stuff that happens.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, not everything is as, sunny as people always see it. And when tragedy happens in our lives, as you just mentioned, Mike Cooper losing his wife. Myself, I lost my brother 5 years ago, and you had such a sudden tragedy yourself. Yeah, and I'm so sorry about your brother. I think that you and I both had those losses in 2015, yes? Yes. Yeah. Ours was May 11th, 2015, when our perfectly healthy 24-year-old daughter went to sleep after marking her very first Mother's Day and didn't wake up in the morning to her 7-month-old baby's cries or to her husband trying to wake her up. Her heart stopped, and we were, in true showbiz fashion, out of the country, doing a show, getting set to do our first Monday show from a hotel in Jamaica with a whole bunch of listeners. And that news came to us at about 10 to 6 in the morning, and then that day was spent trying to get home. So yeah, that was when the rug was pulled out from under our lives. And prior to that, Rudy, and you've been down this road too, I thought that being fired in 2003 from that station that we loved so much was the worst thing that happened to me. But as time goes on and we notch more years in our tree, you realize what really does matter, and the things that you can pick yourself up from, and the things that are going to take longer to get through that you will never get over. Your daughter, who I met from Yay High, she loves you. She absolutely amazing. In fact, I remember people were even talking about, she got into broadcasting, that she could have ended up being the heir to you. She could have taken over the show once you decided to retire. I want people to really know a lot about her because, like I said, she was such a bright light. She was funny. She was smart. And when you talked about, how you said you always, speak up all the time. She had no problems with that.
No, she did not, and I was really proud of her for that. And she didn't have the need to please gene that I had. If she wasn't a performing dancing monkey like I was from as soon as I could speak. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, I stood up on the desk and recited The Night Before Christmas by heart because, hey, middle child, somebody pay attention. But Lauren never had that. She performed beautifully. She sang better than I did, as she was gifted on guitar and piano, mostly her singing voice in terms of musical abilities. And she did it for the love of it and because she wanted to, not because she felt the pressure of having to perform. So that was something that I think that Rob gave to her, because my husband, Rob, as you know, guitar player, but primarily a bass player, he was the one who always stood in the background. He was the producer. He was, the manager in the case of my life and continues to be in our freelance career. He was the bass player. He's the guy who always stood in the shadows and made sure everybody else could show up and shine. And he's been just such a tremendous gift, and he was an amazing, amazing father. And he raised Lauren when I was out, at 3:45 in the morning going to the radio station. There was Rob getting her hair braided and her lunch and breakfasts made and all of those things. It was just a tremendous gift to us all that he was able to do that and do such an amazing job raising this child.
How did that moment of losing her change your life personally and professionally?
Well, it's funny because, in an instant that everything has changed. And it's not many times in your life do you have that. Like when there are the odd times when you meet someone. I knew on my first date with Rob, which wasn't supposed to be a date, when our hands brushed, we both saw a spark. And it wasn't just static electricity. It was like something just happened. We knew that at that moment. There are a few moments in your life where you stop and you go, okay, I've been hit by lightning. One of them was when I sat down in a college class when I was still in high school and heard about the radio course. Again, hit by lightning. That was learning of Lauren's passing in a dark, open lobby of a Jamaica hotel in the morning where the floors were wet with the dew of the night before, and it was still so quiet. First thing I did, Rob and I walked back into the ballroom because he relayed the news to me from a phone call he got. We walked back into the ballroom, and the first thing I wanted to do was sit down and do the show because it sounds crazy, and it is crazy, and saner heads prevailed. But radio was where everything made sense, and I just needed to grab onto something for a second. And so professionally, I knew that radio was somehow going to save me. Because it always had, and it had always been there for me, and it was my rock. It was not always a steady rock because things happen in your career that you don't expect, but it was my rock. So professionally, I took 1 month off. I returned to the air June 11th, and gradually pulled myself out from the depths. Even my voice was lower because I couldn't even. I couldn't bring myself to feel anything even close to happiness. But there's something that happens, Rudy, when you're doing yoga. If you're in an uncomfortable position, the instructor will sometimes say to put a little smile on your face so that your body thinks you're enjoying it. And in doing the radio show, I think my body felt like, okay, it's all right to laugh. The endorphins can flow again. You can feel good. You're with friends. You're in a safe place. Go ahead and be happy. So in that way, I was able to climb back up and then continued to do the show for 18 months. So that answers the professional part of the question. Personally, it's just beyond anything that you can imagine to lose a child. And we all kind of imagine it because you just go, you hear stories and you go, oh, thank God that wasn't me. And then when it does happen to you, it is unthinkable. It's more than you can make sense of because it is senseless, and it totally was. It was just there was nothing to prepare us for this. Your brother suffered throat cancer without having smoked for years or for months and then died, in a very short time. We had no notice. We had nothing to prepare us. And, I don't know if this is the same for you, but in speaking with Mike Cooper about the 4 years that his wife Debbie lived with stage 4 colon cancer, you're not supposed to compare grief because it is the incomparable. But, he said, I don't know if it's better to lose somebody suddenly or to go through those years of ups and downs and so much suffering, So either way, it's horrific. And again, this is why we don't compare grief. People will say, well, I know it's not the same as losing a child, but here's what happened to me. And I go, okay, that's your grief, and I honor that, and your suffering, and it broke your heart open too. But what you'll find is once your heart is shattered like that, as try as you may to glue back those little pieces together, there will always be pieces missing. But that allows the light to come in. And it turns you into so much more of a compassionate and empathetic human being to the suffering of others. I don't insist that everybody go through a terrible loss in order to feel compassion and care for others, but it sure does do it. It really does, because then you understand. You understand so much more about that person sitting across from you on the streetcar or next to you on the subway, and why they may look so morose. God knows what they've suffered, but you know that they could be, and it changes how you see things. Boy, that was a long answer.
No, and that's a beautiful answer, because this is the other important part, because anybody who's been in the industry that we have, in a lot of ways, the industry is an identity of ourselves. I mean, I know for myself, for the longest time, it was Rudy Blair, 680 News. Or even just saying Rudy Blair was never just Rudy.
Right.
He decided after 18 months, Erin Davis, CHFI, was no longer. So that identity is now gone. You've lost your daughter. So that part of your life is now in some ways missing.
Yes.
When when you decided to move that, and then you moved to another area of the country.
Yep.
With all of that happening, were you trying to find yourself again? Like, what was that like to go through? Because at a certain point when all this was happening, and I know it happened to me, I didn't know who I was and who I was going to be.
Well, that's exactly right. When you tie your profession with your identity so closely, and it's something everyone warns us not to do, but those of us who perform and love to do that are happy to do it. It's a joy. It's an honor. When you tie yourself so closely to that identity, it's like a death in you when you lose that identity. When your profession, your love, your microphone is taken from you, which it was in 2003 for me, and I'm not talking about 2016 when I stepped away, as you very clearly delineated. But you do lose a part of yourself. So it is another form of death. But in this one, you get a chance to be reborn. You get a chance to recreate yourself. And, I used to jokingly say sometimes you got to be pushed out of the nest to see if you can fly. And oftentimes you're going to hit a lot of branches on the way down, but you have to learn to fly, or you're just going to sit at the bottom of the tree and wait for something to come and eat you. Whether it's addiction or grief or depression or any of the myriad ways that we can be taken down in our lives, you've got to find that breeze, that wind that's going to pick you up again, even if you have to create it yourself by moving those wings. You just can't wait for the world to do it for you.
Part of that was your book. When did you decide to write this book, and what was the true meaning for it for you?
Well, after I decided to pack it up, and Rob and I, sold everything just about and moved out to Vancouver Island here on the southern tip off the shore of British Columbia and part of British Columbia, we couldn't be, virtually any farther from Toronto. We needed to be surrounded by ocean and mountains and just kind of reconnect. And that week that I did the Tracy Moore show, kind of saying goodbye, and she was very kind and gracious on City Line in acknowledging what I'd contributed to broadcasting and all of that. in the audience that day was a woman who usually goes out with her sisters to, once a month to a spa or to theater. But on this day, they decided to go to a taping of the City Line show. She was the senior vice president and editor at HarperCollins, Iris Tupholme. And she wrote to me a few days later and said, I think you've got a book in you. And I took a couple of days to answer because it kind of blindsided me, and I had to talk it over with Rob, and then I wrote back, yeah, I think I do too. So from that December until April of 2017, I was in the process of writing, editing, and rehashing and digging deep into things I did not want to go into, but that I had to in order to write the book. So that's how it came to be. I certainly wouldn't have shopped my story around to anybody, and I couldn't have done it without the guidance of the incredible team at HarperCollins.
Well, what was it like, though, to put that part of your life out there? That painful, the good times, but the painful part of it, too. I mean, I know for myself, I could go to therapy. It's going to be a private thing that I'm going to have a conversation with. I'm going to have a private conversation with somebody like yourself, a good friend, and tell you everything that's going on. But here you are telling the world about what's going on. What did that feel like to read so much?
Well, you know what? A lot of people during the book tour in 2019 asked, was it cathartic? And it wasn't, because it was awful. And often I had to drag Rob into it too. And he kind of was reluctant about me writing the book because he was like, are you sure you want to go there? But the purpose that I saw in it was not so much telling my story, but telling hopefully the story of others. And I did. I was given the great honor of being able to talk to other bereaved parents who had lost children by suicide or by murder or sudden infant death. And just, okay, what did you do? What did you experience? How did you get through? And how do we help other people to know what this is like so that they don't stumble into things like at least you have a husband, at least she didn't suffer, at least. And those are two of the most damaging words that anyone who has suffered any kind of loss, whether it's a pet or a job or a child or a spouse, can be told. Because in our way, we all try to comfort and find words that will somehow mitigate the loss or the pain. But those words are saying, it's not so bad, and here's why. Or at least that's how we hear it. So the book, Rudy, was not only our story, and I was very cautious not to make it all about us because, I'm not George Clooney. Nobody really cares about the ins and outs of my life through a wonderful career and, a pretty pedestrian but wonderful marriage, 32 years with not a lot of adventures in terms of, there weren't any divorces or stepping outside the boundaries or anything like that. But just the stories that I told were ones that hopefully people could relate to and see themselves in. And that has been the greatest joy in this, is people still writing to me all the time who are saying, when this happened to you, I couldn't imagine what you were going through, and now I am. And I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful for your book, and I have a question, or I want to say this is what I noticed, or, sharing their experience. That means more to me than anything, is to at least be of help to somebody who is going through this, or else what was it all for?
I have to add in the thing that drove me crazy and still does, if anybody says to me, time heals. And I don't care how much time. It has never healed. I mean, there are times when I'm driving and out of nowhere, I could just start crying because I miss my brother so much.
And I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. And he must have been a wonderful brother, and how lucky you were to have that relationship with him. I hope he's still watching over you, and you feel him around you at times, Rudy.
Oh, yeah, no, he likes to play around with the lights in the car, believe me.
Oh, good.
I know it's him. But when we talk about this, I mean, we've talked about our personal lives. 2020 seems like that's what this year has been like, especially for so many people with COVID happening and people losing their lives. I mean, they get ill and so many people are gone, instantly. And so many people I feel are going through we've gone through, and then adding in the other things that have been going on with racism being spoken in such a different manner than I've ever seen before. Well, of course, what's been going on in the U.S., Kevins and Karens, those terms being brought up the way it has been. I mean, there's so many things, especially because of social media that's been happening. So many people are going through so much this year. I want to get your take in what you see on 2020, what you've personally experienced, and how do you think it relates?
It relates in so many ways, and you're absolutely right about just how much has happened in 2020. And it's been exhausting. That has been one of the key words of 2020. It has been exhausting, from inside our homes to inside our heads to what's going on around us and the things that we can participate, and the serenity prayer of knowing the difference between what we can change and what we can't change. It's been so exhausting. And everyone has suffered a loss this year, and it hasn't had to have been the extreme loss of a death of a loved one. It can be the loss of dreams, the loss of hopes, the loss of plans, the weddings, the birthday parties, the travel plans, the things that got you through a Canadian winter, just the simplest things. We learned how blessed we were not to have to line up to get groceries or, God help us, toilet paper, when countries have had to do that for decades. We learned so much on our perspective, but we also learned Rudy, in order to have darkness, you have to have light, and vice versa, the yin and yang of the universe. And the darkness has brought out so much in terms of connection with each other. And who even knew that Zoom was a verb before 2020? And God knows, I wish that I'd bought stock in the company, because COVID be damned, I'd be talking to you from an island somewhere that wasn't part of Canada. But you and I both, right, in our little grass shack.
Yep.
And the internet would suck, but that's okay. We could send over messengers through our servants. It would be amazing. But anyway, the things that we've lost have been countered by the things that we've gained. The connection with each other, the people who brought casseroles. Whoever does that, except if you're mourning a death. We had friends and family who left food in bags, kind of a stop, drop, and roll for 2020 at our door when we were quarantined after coming back from the States, or when we were sad, or when we were not feeling well. We learned to Zoom with family members and to do interviews through video chatting, and to do all of these things and connecting with each other in ways that we never had before. More people sent Christmas cards this year. More people reached out to find out how they're doing, how others that we loved and usually just take for granted are actually doing, and then listening for the answer. There has been a sense of connection, even though we've been forced to be apart in this past year, that has been a gift for us all. And a change in perspective. I mentioned the groceries and the things that we took for granted, but just so many people adopting animals, caring for others instead of ourselves. It's been incredible in that way. And it has well and truly sucked. Don't get me wrong. But people have learned to take AA meetings online, to step outside their comfort zone, to reach out and say, I need help. Somebody help me. And it's been, in that way, it's been really a gift too. We're not all trying to be so strong.
But the scary part is, 2020 is, as we speak, almost over. We're going into 2021.
Yeah.
A lot of people are looking at it as a complete reset. Even though right now we have a vaccine, there's still, in my opinion, there's still a long ways to go before anything ever comes out even or close to what it was before. What advice? I want to get your thoughts on that, and what advice can you give folks out there? Because I think a lot of them are looking at 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. Oh, my life is going to change now. Everything's going to be great.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
That, to me, that's not the case. We still got a long ways to go. What advice can you give folks who are still treading through? And as you said, some are looking for jobs. Some are still trying to hopefully pay their, their light bill. Missing family, worried about family being in a home, all of these things. It's, even when we go into 2021, those things will still exist and still will continue at some point.
They will, and part of it is because there is such a vocal part of society that refuses to think of anyone but themselves. The anti-maskers, I'll say the anti-vaxxers, because I don't care. I don't have a show. Go ahead. It's 95% effective, and we're getting very good reports from it. And there will have to be a second shot, and people just have to hold on. We have to be adults. We have to think of other people. And for the people I heard from who said, oh, stop living in fear, Karen. It's only affecting seniors. Well, to hell with you. My dad's a senior, and he lived his life in the public service, and he's a good man, and he's a great father and grandfather, and he doesn't deserve to die just because he's 87. So just stop it. Think of someone but yourself. Think of the people who sacrificed for us and made us live such beautifully cozy and bountiful lives. And then maybe think of giving back instead of me. And again, I do think that 2020 has done that for a lot of us. We're young, we're healthy, we're great, but I'm wearing a mask for you. And, this is part of what Rob and I embarked on in 2020 was delivering meals to seniors. And we do that every week, and we'll do it, as long as anybody needs us to, because we have to be there for the people who were there for us, for our teachers, and for the people who took care of us, for the healthcare workers who are now retired, and God bless the ones who are not. We have to be there for each other. So, lecture over. That's how I feel, and I feel strongly about that. But looking into 2021, Anne Lamott is a writer, and she's 70. She's got a lot of years of sobriety behind her. She's just got a great wit. What she talks about grief, and please, if anyone wants to look this up, it's Anne with an E and Lamott, Lamott. She very graciously allowed me to use a piece that she wrote about grief in my book, and she talks about it blowing your heart open. And this is the bad news, but it's also the good news, because you will heal, but your heart will be open to so much more. And I alluded to that earlier. But what she says that has really struck me, and may also stick with you, Rudy, as you go through your life without your brother, is that you will learn to dance again, but you will dance with a limp. And it's so true, because Rob and I have learned to dance again. We've learned to try and find and embrace joy wherever we can, and we will always be limping, but we will also always be dancing. And everyone's life after COVID, after quarantine, after all of these things that we have gone through, after the jobs that have been lost and the businesses shut down and the places that we will never see open again, and the restaurants that are going to do everything differently, everything has changed. But we will all learn to dance again. They will have to be new steps on a rocky and moving, undulating floor for a long time for a lot of people. But we will learn to dance again, and we will dance with a limp, because that is human nature. We find a way, and that's how I feel about the future going forward.
Part of your future also has to do with a little grandchild. What is it like being a grandmother?
Oh, you know what? I was initially, Rudy, when Lauren told us she was pregnant, Rob was about to turn 60, because he's far older than I am, as you know.
Yes.
And I wasn't ready, because I was so afraid of what listeners would think of a grandmother on the radio. Isn't that ridiculous? But, the constricts we work under in terms of a very ageist medium and society. And I was so afraid. And now here's Marilyn Dennis merrily rolling along into another year at Chum. She's a grandmother.
She's amazing. Yeah.
And she doesn't care. She is who she is, and people love her for it. And if there are people who say, why would I listen? You're a grandmother. Okay, fine. Go find somebody else who doesn't know nearly as much about life as she does, or the things
Absolutely.
that I brought to the show. So anyway, Colin arrived, and we could not have been happier. And then, of course, 7 months later, our lives were turned upside down. Now he is the love of our lives, as he always was, but now in a much deeper sense. And his dad remarried a wonderful girl named Brooke, and they've had a baby together. So Colin has a sister, and so Jane is now just over a year old, and their entire little family moved from Ottawa to a 6-minute drive from our house back in July. So our lives are as complete as they possibly can be, and we are finding joy coming to us instead of digging through the pile of manure to find that pony somewhere. The pony came to us, Rudy. So that's what it's like.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible story. Incredible advice. Because as I said, so many people are looking for that 3, 2, 1 and life to change, but life continues, and that's just the way it is, and that's what we got to deal with. And, you have been an amazing example of just living life to the fullest. One of the things that I want to share this with our listeners too, with my listeners, is that when I attended the funeral, one of the things that you did say about your daughter was that she seemed to want to do things as quickly as possible.
Yeah, why can't you wait? Yeah.
Why can't you wait? And she didn't want to wait. She wanted to make sure things were done. And I think she is the perfect example of showing that, don't sit back and go, I can do this in the next month. Oh, I can go here. No, if you know you can do it now, do it now.
Absolutely, Rudy. How many people put off trips that they were going to take in 2020 or something? How many, we put things off because we thankfully believe that there will always be another day. But this is why it's always such a reminder, and it doesn't have to be that trip. It can be the phone call, somebody you haven't spoken with or that you need to mend a fence with. Again, 2020 has brought it all home, quite literally, and figuratively as well, that you can't put things off because tomorrow is guaranteed to no one. It really is. And, Lauren had her time and her purpose. And we just have to believe that bringing Colin into the world, it was her reason for being here, and that's how we treat him, and that's how we honor her. So all we can do is honor those who have left us, and live the lives that they would want us to live, and that they would be living if they were still here. And that's all we can do, my friend.
Absolutely. You're doing podcasts. You have your book. Where can we find out about everything that you're doing? Because there's always something else coming up. And I'm going to encourage people to follow you on social media, on Twitter, because you've always got a positive message that you send out every day, too.
Thank you. Yeah, mostly my home base seems to be Facebook, facebook.com/Erin Davis page. I post there every single day. And I write a journal. It was always daily since 2003, but this year I did pull back last year, and it's twice a week now, Mondays and Thursdays. Nobody's expected to remember that, but I always do a link on Facebook to that. And Twitter, it's Erin Davis, and Instagram, Erin Dawn Davis. So yeah, it's been a real joy keeping the connection, which just keeps building with people the longer I'm off radio. So there's a gift that I didn't expect, but it's been a real joy to stay in touch with people that way. And I do answer my emails. I do answer them. So it's just my joy to keep in touch with folks.
Before we go, any advice for those young broadcasters trying to get into this business? Because I know how tough but great it was back in the day for me in the 80s getting into this business. I've gotten people who have contacted me trying to figure out what advice can you give them? Because this definitely is a whole new world trying to get in.
Yeah, it sure is. And, even 10 years ago when Lauren was in college or she was being told, most of you aren't going to get in the business. And she hated that because she knew she would, and it wasn't because of me. She took courses in a whole different city. She was bound and determined she wasn't going to be associated with my name. She almost changed her last name, as a matter of fact, Rudy, because she wasn't that she was ashamed. She just wanted to do it all on her own. But my advice is don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it, but listen to people who care about what you can do and learn. Learn everything that you can, because you're going to, back in the day, we had people who did this, and this, but now you do it all. You are the voice of the radio station, literally, but you are the voice figuratively on social media. Check your spelling. That's my thing. Check your damn spelling. And just learn it all. I mean, even this year, Rudy, I learned to edit. I now edit interviews on 2 different files and Audacity, and I'm always learning because, never stop learning. And don't be afraid to ask for help. If you don't know how to pronounce something, ask for help. It's so much better to ask than to be considered an idiot for the first time you say it and forevermore. So, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Honestly, I guess that would be my best advice.
Absolutely agree with you. And I'm going to add in, too, learn how to not just edit audio, learn how to edit video, learn how to run video cameras.
Yes.
It's all together now. It's funny that you say that, because 5-6 years ago, if somebody said to me to run a website and to do video editing and all these things, because I just knew about audio editing, I would have been like, hell no.
Right.
Now, I just look and I'm just like, okay, here's my website, pop this, oh, video, okay, let me cut this, add this, pop this up. Okay, we're good.
Yep.
You're right.
Yep.
It's learning. Even old guy like me can learn.
Well, it's exactly right. And there's a guy I interviewed a few weeks ago he was a data analyst, and he said, everyone's a technical immigrant this year. We're all learning how to do meetings from home and Zoom and all of those things that are much more widely associated with than what we're talking about. We're all learning. Don't say no. Just say yes and. Do the improv rule and learn how to do it. You'll be so grateful.
Absolutely. Erin, I love you so much. Thank you so much for this so revealing interview. Thank you so much for the friendship. Thank you so much for, like I said, sharing the stage. And in fact, it was actually twice that we've emceed together.
Oh, wow.
And I still can't remember the name of the first guy. The other one was from, used to be with Entertainment Tonight. He had the radio show on.
Oh, John Tesh.
John Tesh.
Yeah.
We hosted that together, too.
Oh my God, James Ingram.
James Ingram, that's it.
James Ingram, and he sang to me. Well, that's what I thought. Rob said.
No, he did. No, he was singing to you, because I was standing over at the side when he was singing to you. And oh my gosh.
Oh gosh. Somewhere out there. I didn't get to sing with him, and now he's gone. But one day we will. And one day you and I will sing and dance together too, Rudy. Be well, my friend. Thank you. Rob and I both send our love.
Tell Rob I love him too, and tell him he still looks like Chuck Norris.
That's right. Well, Rob has aged better. He's not trying to dye his hair shoe color brown like old Chuck is. Oh my God.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Erin, thank you again. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and let's not wait too long for the next couple of years. Just make sure that we get in contact with each other and talk again soon.
Exactly. No more waiting. Thank you, Rudy.